Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Lori, and welcome to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. This podcast fosters curiosity and understanding about neurodiversity while empowering individuals with tools for acceptance and inclusion in classrooms, the workplace, and communities. Featuring shared stories of neurodiverse life experiences, it sheds light on navigating a world not designed for diversity. Universally Unique starts now. Hi, this is Dr. Lori. Today, my guest is Amanda Sherman, and we are going to talk about her journey with traumatic brain injury. But before we get started listening to Amanda's story, we're going to take 3 box breaths. I will count us through those. So we're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and start again. So we'll take our first breath, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and a good sigh. There we go. Hopefully everyone's feeling nice and relaxed now.
That
So,
feels a lot better.
you feel better? Yeah,
Yeah, I
we're
was
having a
running
little
around.
audio challenge that was a little stressful, which I think, we all obviously have those moments, and breathing is certainly always a good option. It only takes 3 breaths, really. So if that's all you have time for, grocery store line, middle of the fight with your significant other, whatever. So, Amanda, if you would share with us your your journey as an individual who's been living with a traumatic brain injury for actually quite some time. I don't remember exactly when you had that injury, and then there've been kind of a series of other things that have kind of compounded some of that. So if you could maybe tell us your story.
Absolutely. I had this motor vehicle accident in 2013. So, I guess that's about 13 years ago this March.
Well,
So, I was on my way to work and I was in the right lane of a 4-lane major highway here in Canton. So 2 lanes in each side of the road. And I was cut off by a bus in my front end, which sent me off the road up an embankment where I went airborne and I hit a telephone pole 4 feet in the air. So that is how I developed a traumatic brain injury, and that was pretty life changing.
so I'm
So,
anticipating that after that impact, there's probably a gap there where you don't remember anything.
yeah, everything kind of went dark
And
and it's
time in the
very blurry, but I remember the moments leading up to it.
hmm
So I was really terrified. I also didn't want to continue to hit the bus. There was children on it. And I remember slamming on my brakes, trying to make a driveway where I might have been able to escape, but going 50, 60 miles an hour, that wasn't happening. I also remember it was like time stopped. And I remember seeing green, green grass really fast. And then I remember seeing blue, blue sky because my car was uplifted into the air. And then as my car was descending, I saw a brown telephone pole directly in front of me. And that's when I just accepted it. I didn't think I was going to make it out of that one alive. I also didn't have a seatbelt on. So I got really limber and loose. And I said, here I come. My parents had both just passed away. And the doctors think because I got so limber, is why I didn't have any other substantial injuries besides some lacerations, bruising, scrapes, and the traumatic brain injury. So in that moment, I do believe I had a choice, and because I accepted what might happen, it saved me in a way.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine if you had tensed up, it would have made it significantly worse.
Absolutely.
And then I'm anticipating some time at the hospital.
Yes. Went to the hospital right away. Unfortunately, it is hard to assess closed head traumatic brain injury at first. So I was released that night, typical neck brace, prescription, anti-inflammatories, rest. And about 3 days later, I'd say the signs started compounding rather quickly. I was confused. I was already back to work, and I was walking into offices and not sure why I was walking in there. And people would ask me what I was looking for, and I would just be blank and say, I don't know. And I started driving somewhere after work, and it was like the lights started flickering, shadows, um, heat thrush through my body, and I knew just to go home and rest. And finally, someone's like, I think you should probably go back to the hospital. So I was stopping somewhere to get directions because back then I didn't have the GPS on my phone, so I was doing MapQuest. And I went into a place that I had a part-time job, just went in there, printed off some directions, and I left. And then about halfway to my journey in Hartford, um, I started hearing ringing in my ears, and everything just started going black. And I was on a major highway. And again, the heat thrush through my body. And it was just like my vision was going out. And next thing I know, I woke up in Hartford Hospital, and I had almost crashed a rental car going off an off ramp. I just passed out. And
Wow,
that's
it's
when
a
the
miracle
doctors
that
assessed me.
something else
Yeah, I
didn't
was very
happen.
lucky. And they let me know I had a very serious frontal lobe traumatic brain injury.
Wow. Somebody was watching out for you.
Yes, absolutely. Very lucky
Uh,
girl.
yeah, very much so. So tell me what happens kind of after that. I know from conversations you and I have had that that really changed the course of your life.
It sure did. Right away I had to get into a neuro specialist, and they did not want me working for at least 6 months, which was tough for me because my parents had just passed away. I didn't have anyone to help me financially. I had just signed the lease first, last, and down to the apartment I was moving into. So it was a tough diagnosis. And then, week by week, the symptoms kept coming. The blurred vision, the confusion, the sleeplessness, the restlessness, and the journey continued to get worse. I also had issues getting in to see the neuro specialist. She was 3 months out, but she was the best in the area that worked with athletes and special forces soldiers. She was the best of the best up in Sharon. So it was tough. I was going to some local neurologists, but they kept saying you need to see a specialist. So I
Hmm.
was in this gray area for the first 3 months of not getting treated properly, which was worsening my symptoms and my journey. And not being able to work was really tough, hardship financially. So navigating that going forward, it was very difficult. I eventually got hooked up with the neuro specialist, and they let me know that I was not progressing as fast as normally because I wasn't getting the attention that I needed. And I also requested to go back to work because I needed money to survive.
Yeah.
And they did allow me, I think 2 or 3 months in, to go back to work for 4 hours a day. I was supposed to wear a helmet. I had to wear sunglasses because the lights were so bright. Um, and they wanted me to take a 15-minute break every hour and then go home and take an hour nap. And they had this graph at the wall, I'll never forget it, at the neurospecialist. And they're like, normal people, the first 2 months peak and then they kind of level out and gradually get better. They're like, you're like basically went up and you were flatlining. And if you don't listen to us and stop working and just stay home and rest, you're going to have permanent issues from this injury. So it was tough circumstances, but I also think the Western medicine doesn't quite know how to address traumatic injuries and rapidly recover them.
Yeah.
So it was a tough journey. I would say I had serious symptoms for at least the first year and a half. I had to wear sunglasses, blurred vision the first 6 months. I couldn't even read a menu sitting down at the restaurant. And then there was the PTSD when I got back into a vehicle. And that's when I realized that neurodivergence, now looking back, came on. My nervous system was just so out of whack. When I'd get into a vehicle and I'd be driving with someone, I was panicked. I'd be at a stoplight and cars rushing by. I could hear everything into a different level like I've never heard before. And so I'm things are very loud. They're shocking my system visually. I'm seeing every single car, computing the make and model that are going by. I'm just looking for threats all the time. So it was really hard being out in public. I remember my first time going into a restaurant. I couldn't read the menu. I had to ask someone to read it to you. It was just the words were jumping all over the place. And I'll never forget this little cafe I was in. The noise in there was so loud, and it was like being tuned into 18 different radio stations and hearing all the stations at once. I could hear everybody's conversation at their table, no matter how close or far away they're with me. I could hear the chefs talking in the kitchen,
Wow.
and it was just so overwhelming. And I remember somebody dropped a tray of silverware, and I was just totally shocked. And pretty cool, calm, and collective my whole life, and not much has shocked me. But I was just in this panic, this fight or flight mode all the time. So it was really hard being out in public. And the first time I went to the grocery store, that was an experience. I just had to walk out. Too much stimulation, the lights, the noise. I was just hypersensitive
Yeah.
and hyper vigilant.
Well, and I think, you since you didn't get treatment right at the very beginning, um, there that time frame right at early injury
Critical.
is very critical. The last episode, I interviewed somebody who runs a CEO of an agency that supports folks with acquired brain injury. And we talked about like that really critical period right at the very beginning. So somehow, without even having the services that you needed at that point, you have managed to come to a completely different place. Do you still have that level of sensitivity to all the things around you, or has that sort of settled in?
Absolutely. I would say it did become worse from future PTSD. Being involved in some narcissistic abusive relationships, that's when it really came online, which is probably a conversation for a different podcast at
Yeah, well,
another
we can
time.
have a different session for that one, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's almost as if surviving those relationships have only heightened my hypervigilance and some of what people might call superpowers.
yeah,
Assessing situations, acting quickly in critical situations. And I've grown to actually accept it and use it as a tool. rather than be depressed about it. It's like I've been able to actually use it as something going forward to help
So
me.
could you share with us how you've kind of channeled that into something that's been, I think really your life's work at this point?
Absolutely. In 2015, so 2 years after the accident, I started studying Reiki energy practitioner with my sister Linda, who was my Reiki master, and it taught me how to meditate for the first time, how to ground into the earth and connect to source, to channel life force energy into my clients and myself. That really grounded me, and I realized it was so healing for me. She needed someone to practice on. She started working on me during my concussion, and I really can say she helped steadfast some of that emotional, mental, and physical healing with just her hands-on touch. And so I began to delve into the naturopathic world and study Reiki, and I quickly became a master within 6 months, I want to say. And I was able to channel that energy into other people and myself and learn how to calm myself down from this overstimulation I was experiencing. So that's when my wellness center birthed, and I began my journey into the natural world and finding natural ways, supplements to quickly heal. And it became my life's passion. And here I am 8 years later with my wellness center, Good Bones, also known as Soul Stitches Wellness. And I've been able to help so many others that have had traumatic brain injuries with our products, services, and therapies in my network of practitioners, which include Chinese, Japanese herbalists, shamanic healers, spiritual counselors, and Reiki practitioners.
Yeah. So I believe that you have shared with me in the past that there was kind of a cheerleader champion for you through a lot of this, and maybe not necessarily what some people might think of as a traditional cheerleader. But could you tell us about your cheerleader?
Well, when you say that, I can't remember which one I spoke of, but three come to mind.
Well, I'm thinking
During
of a
my,
four-legged one.
oh, Bandy. Oh, yes. How could I forget that one?
You
That
can tell us
dog
about
came,
the people next.
yeah. So about 6 months after that motor vehicle accident, and I would say near death experience, this special creature with four legs came into my life, and she was my protector. So I had to sit home a lot to heal from that traumatic brain injury, and she became my right hand. I'm gonna get a little emotional. That dog saved my life, and she came to me after I lost both my parents, um, 18 months apart, and my brother. Uh, and she's my little sidekick. And she really got me through that concussion, that traumatic brain injury. And it was so nice just to have someone to curl up with
Hmm.
and to get that unconditional love. And she was my protector. She's the sweetest dog in the world, but she was also very protective of me. And, now I had a reason to go hiking and paddleboarding, and which is also a form of meditation. So many people think you got to sit down in silence to meditate. No, you don't. I
Yeah.
meditate all the time, with my new current dog too. He's under my Reiki table right now, Bender. Getting on the water is my meditation and also helps with the overstimulation. Getting into the woods, hiking, swimming, exercise. So yes, I'm very lucky that dog's with me 11 years, and she really sped fast my healing.
Yeah. And so it probably in some respects in comparison to some folks' stories, a slightly unusual sort of, sidekick
Yeah.
nursemaid, protector.
Because I forgot to mention my dizzy spells. So that impact with the telephone pole, I tossed crystal stones that we have in our inner ear, which keep you balanced. So I had
Hmm.
huge vestibular problems. I used to have to go every week and they'd roll me over the table until I'd almost throw up, and I'd have to look at a mark on a wall to try to realign those crystals. I had eyes that shook back and forth. I forget the medical term for that. So that's what was causing my blurred vision. So there would be many times I would almost pass out, and that dog would always, you know, get me back on my feet and ground me or wake me up if I was starting to fade out. So, forgot to mention, I couldn't even drive a vehicle for 6 to 8 months because when I was driving, I over anything over 20 miles an hour, I would start to fall asleep and I would pass out. Hence, that's how I ended up in Hartford Hospital, realizing I had a TBI. So, kind of lost my train of thought there, but it was a tough recovery. I couldn't even walk straight for almost a year.
Yeah, I mean, and
Enunciation, word searching, confusion, and just the PTSD. Like I was just always in shock all the time, and just so easily um, what
I would say overstimulated.
yes, thank you. Spooked. I was easily
Yeah,
spooked.
yeah. And I think, some folks don't remember how they got where they were. And they'll be like, I don't remember any of how did I end up at the hospital? How did I end up with this injury? And I think, perhaps maybe for some of those folks, not remembering that makes some of the recovery
Trauma.
process easier,
Yeah.
but you knew how you got there. And so that was in your mind as you were in the car. I mean, it's hard to get past all of that. It really is. But
Absolutely. And I
um,
was allowed to take that dog to every job I went to. My bosses at the time, because I had three different jobs after that to make up for the loss of money and just keep going. And so that dog was with me everywhere.
yeah. And I think people in general are starting to recognize the what it is that a dog brings to a situation. And I think even if they had you bringing the dog to your job because the dog was important to you, the dog was probably of benefit to them as well.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
probably enjoyed the dog being around because it was a very, very sweet, very pleasant dog that I've had the opportunity to have met. Um, so you've shared how you relax, you like to keep active, you like to be um in the water, on the water. And I think that makes a huge difference. Nature is such a critical component, I think, for all of us, and very much so for people who are trying to work with all the impact that's happening from the current environment. Uh,
100%.
Yeah. So how do you see us as a society starting to recognize and understand folks that are neurodiverse? Do you have any thoughts about are we growing? Are we getting better at that? Are you seeing that from your perspective, or is there still a lot of work to do there?
I think there's still a lot of work to do, but I am seeing more of it out there in the PC world, the cell phone world. I'm seeing the reels talking about neurodivergence, and I am seeing definitely a catalyst forming out there, but I still think it needs to be broadcasted on some of the main media stations. We're here in this intimate podcast, which I'm so happy to be part of and discover through you recently. But I think there's also a lot of infamous, I don't want to say celebrities, but influence out there that are
Yeah.
neurodivergent. And I wish they would start talking about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope to be part of that too, especially with Cheyenne, who you've interviewed before.
Yep.
And I think if people could understand how a neurotypical brain operates versus a neurodivergent and just see that it's just a rerouting experience.
Hmm. Yeah.
that it would help a lot of people understand because I've had some clients of mine in my shop, not a lot, but a few. When I'm passionate, and that's one of my new superpowers is I can learn and retain so quickly. I'm so visual now,
Hmm.
and I could look at something from across the room as long as I could read it. It's in my brain forever, and it's filed away in this cabinet. So when I educate on something I'm passionate about it, I have a habit of talking very quickly. And I've had some clients say, just give me the product, I'll buy it. My head's going to pop if you talk anymore. And at first, I was a little taken back. And then I have the other side of the blade, if you will, where people are like, you just taught me more in 5 minutes than I've learned my whole life in this type of setting. Or when I go to a dispensary here, I've just never learned so much. Thank you so much. Because they're probably in my dimension, as I call it, or vibration, and can take my fast talking.
Yep. And I
So
think, a lot of people are starting to try a variety of different approaches to addressing whatever it is that's going on with them, but many of them have no idea why they're doing certain things and what those certain things are doing for them. And you are certainly someone who has the opportunity and takes that opportunity to try to provide that background, that information, so they make a
informed decision.
decision that was informed as opposed to, well, I heard from somebody that I should do this, you know, which I think is kind of how we got ourselves into trouble and, and just general Western medicine. Western medicine has a place, but I think some of it is I'll follow whatever it is you say because you're the medical practitioner in this situation. And I think, people need to ask questions, not to question that
Absolutely.
person's knowledge, but to ask questions and be informed. And I think you're in a great place to provide that
There's
background
nothing
and
like being
information.
able to help someone when you've already experienced that injury or that situation or that trauma yourself. And I don't want to get too far above your questioning, but I would like to touch on how I recently got another traumatic brain injury in August.
We have about a minute, so yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
please tell us. No, tell us quickly.
I was able to quickly heal that traumatic brain injury where I actually had a contusion. I had a little sailing accident with my puppy Bender in August. I was able to heal it in, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks without staying home every day. Was I resting a little bit more? Yes. But the products that I have in my shop and discovering that CBD rapidly heals concussions. I wish I knew that back in 2013. So I was able to
Yeah.
use, I would say, 5 of our products to rapidly heal a traumatic brain injury. And instead of being upset about the initial injury, I realized I have the network, I have the community, the nurse practitioners, the herbalists, the naturopaths. I saw the silver lining. I could help so many other people, so many sports injuries, accidents, trauma victims rapidly heal and get them back on track and help them to move forward without any permanent disabilities. And that's why I'm here today. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. And I very much appreciate that. And we are like right at the very end of our time. So, Amanda, I very much appreciate the fact that you were willing to talk with us and share this experience with us and your knowledge. And when this gets up and on out in podcast land and up on the network, your contact information will be included. So I would anticipate that you may be hearing from some of our listeners. I'm confident that you would be happy to support anyone, no matter where it is that they are, either through the mail or on the phone or through an email. So, but thank you so much for spending this time with us, and thank you for your patience with working through the technology. I know some of that was new, but now you're a Zoom pro, so you can start
Absolutely.
Zooming with people.
Yeah, I look forward to any contact in the future from anyone that could use my assistance and modalities.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. Join me, Dr. Lori, on Transformation Talk Radio every second and fourth Monday at 11:30 Pacific Time as we continue to explore navigating a world not designed for diversity. For advocacy and support for individuals with disabilities, let's connect. Learn more about consulting and life coaching at notoholisticconsulting.com.